Hello and welcome to another episode of the CG Garage. This is episode number 409, featuring Andrew Bardusk, VFX Supervisor over at Zoic. Our friends at Zoic have always been very kind to us with a lot of our guests that we've had on. It's been a lot of fun talking to them. Andrew is no exception, a really, really sweet guy, very down to earth, very talented, obviously. He's been doing this for a long, long time, and I really kind of loved his story. Kristen, what do you think of Andrew?
Yeah, well, he has been in the visual effects industry for a while now. He gives us a good story of just how he moved to LA at like 19 or 20 on a whim and then never looked back. He discusses his CG supervising role in Legends of Tomorrow. And he also talks about how streaming has changed episodic work and what it's like being back on set. And then he also talks about how it was choreographing an octopus attack. So that was a great discussion. And then you guys also discuss remote work and just how it's actually benefited Zoic because they can hire anyone anywhere now and just the advantages of supervising remotely. So he has a really good outlook on the remote aspects of everything.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. I was very sort of interested to see that perspective. Obviously, remote work does have its challenges in a lot of ways, and we talked about that, especially with junior artists. But for him, he's looking at a much wider talent pool that he's able to reach from, and how they approach that from a business point of view, which is also pretty cool. I do want to say a couple other things about Andrew. One of the things I've really, really appreciated about him, he's not shy about talking about his downfalls and his failures and how he recovered from those things. So I think that's kind of a really good thing for us all to listen and to hear what he has to say, because I'm sure, especially as you start your career, you may be facing some failures and feel that you're not cut up for it. But he obviously recovered quite well from it, and he's done a lot of great things. So it's really a great lesson to learn from Andrew, and I appreciate him sharing those stories with us. So it was really kind of cool. Okay. On to a couple of announcements. We've got some events going on in January. Kristen, what's going on?
Yeah, so you can find these out at chaos.com/events. On January 23rd, we have a free webinar, and it is real-time to photoreal with Enscape and V-Ray for Revit. And then 2 days later, on January 25th, another webinar, and this is tools and techniques to visualize an eco-friendly home. Learn how to render an animated virtual tour with Chaos Vantage and V-Ray 6 for SketchUp. So don't miss those.
Perfect. That's really great. So remember, those are all at chaos.com/events. Don't forget to register for those webinars. We'd love to see you there. If people want to know more about the podcast, Kristen, where can they go?
You can go to facebook.com/CG Garage Podcast or chaos.com/CG Garage. And if you'd like to watch us, go to youtube.com/Chaos Group TV.
Perfect. And if you guys have any ideas of podcasts or want to comment on them, please let us know. labs@chaos.com is our email. And again, this is another call out. I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks, but I would love to have more voices to speak out about their position, especially in the artist point of view on the subject of AI. So if you have any ideas or suggestions of people to talk to, or would like to suggest yourself as being a guest on a podcast, we'd love to have you on. AI, I think, is a very important topic that we need to talk about in the community. And I think that this platform and this podcast would be a great way to sort of talk about some of those issues out loud. So again, that email is labs@chaos.com. But for now, please enjoy episode number 409 with Andrew Bardusk, VFX Supervisor at Zoic Studios.
Welcome to another CG Garage, where the Chaos Group talks. You'll know it's over when the last bucket drops. We're gonna fire off rays in high dynamic range. We know that ambient occlusion is passé. Global illumination won't lead you astray. And while image-based lighting is really swell, you need to make sure everything has Fresnel.
Okay, well, thanks so much for doing this, Andrew. I appreciate it. We've been working with Zoic for many, many, many years over at Chaos, and sort of have lots of great friends there. I've worked with several fun people there, including Bill Spradling is actually a good friend of mine who's over there.
Oh, very cool.
And obviously I've known many other people in the Zoic infrastructure. I haven't had the opportunity to meet you, so I'm glad we're able to do this.
Absolutely.
But
Thanks
I'd
for
like to
having me.
sort of know, what your background is, and how did you sort of land in visual effects? What was the sort of thing that sort of was a catalyst that made you excited about filmmaking and visual effects?
Well, let's see. I could take you all the way back to high school.
There you go.
So I was always, as a kid, super into computers because I really wanted to play Doom. And my computer didn't have enough RAM, and I had to learn how to make a boot disk so I could launch Doom without launching Windows. So as I got into high school, my school had like a network admin class, like an elective that I thought was really cool. So I got super into that. And then we actually had a really good audiovisual program. And I did that as just kind of like a throwaway easy A. But they had Final Cut, and they had mini DV cameras with the FireWire.
Yep.
And once I could do that, I was like, whoa, this combines two huge interests of mine. This is awesome. So I had a great time just seeing just something about seeing the video go into a computer right there blew my mind. Obviously, this was before smartphones. And
right.
So I went to film school shortly after. And like right after high school, I went to like this 1-year program called the New York Film Academy. And that was all... There was no post really in that. I mean, we did a little bit of editing, but it's all writing, photography, directing, all that. So I came to LA and when I was like 19, 20. And
wow.
With no real plan, I was just like, okay, I want to be in the film industry. Let's do it. So what was I doing? I worked at Otto Nemens for a while, prepping film cameras. And
what was that?
Otto Nemens. I think they're still around, but they were doing film back then, and I do believe they migrated to digital. And I was like, cool, I'll be in the camera crew. I'll be on set. Sounds awesome. And I had a roommate that was a compositor. And once I kind of like, I PA'd a little bit on set, and I was like, man, this is kind of a grind. Like, this is this isn't like the film school shoots where it's like this collaborative, like fun thing. It's pretty tough. And so I started asking my roommate more about what he did. And it sounded pretty cool. And then I remember I just kind of wanted to try my own stuff out and do my own little comps, like a day for night or whatever on my own. And, once I kind of went back to that, I was like, oh yeah, I shot something. It's on the computer. I can play with it now. Like, I was like, oh yeah, this is what kicked off my whole interest in film. I should get back into this. And It was kind of funny. What were
you compositing with back then?
Fusion. A very, very old school version of Fusion. Before Roto was even a node, it was a tab. It was like the mask tab.
Uh-huh.
And he got me in touch with his comp supervisor. And he was like, okay, do your own day for night thing. And if it's cool, you can intern here, get a start, whatever. So I did that, worked super hard on it for a week. I was like, cool, here it is. And he's like, man, this is so bad. He was like, dude, I appreciate you doing this, but like I don't even have anything to work with here. But at that point, I already quit my job at Otto's. So I was like, okay, well, I got to make something work. So I literally went on LA 411. I don't know if that website still exists.
Yeah, I remember that site. Yeah.
And I just clicked visual effects. I saw the phone numbers come up. I just went down the line. I just called everybody. I was just like, hey, I want to intern. We'll learn how to be a compositor. Can I do anything in the building? And there's this one really small place in Van Nuys. I don't think they're around anymore, called 1111. And I literally started just dust busting and commotion.
Right.
And
so people may not know what dust busting is. So I know what it is. but why don't you explain to people what dust busting is? Because this is this goes back to film days, right?
Yes. So we partnered with a film scanner. So they'd get the film in to come into, I think they're Cineon. They weren't DPXs, they're .sin files. Mm-hmm. They'd scan those in, and sometimes little pieces of dust would get on the scanner. And so before we did any VFX work, I cracked each one open, went frame by frame, looked for a little white dot, did a little clone, next frame, little white dot, cloned it. So that is as much as the bottom of the totem pole as you could possibly start on. It just had the headphones on, jamming out all day, and hunting down that dust.
Yeah, that's a tedious task.
Yeah, it was. But, I was just excited to say I worked at a VFX company. I thought it was pretty cool. And, they're doing major releases. So I could see my dust busted work on the big screen.
That is dust free, thanks to me.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so what year was this approximately?
I want to say 2005.
Okay.
Something like that, 2005, 2006, something like that.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. So when did you graduate from dust busting?
I don't think I ever stopped dust busting while I was in the building. But they did start letting me roto because I was doing both in Commotion.
Okay. Yep.
Which also no one's probably heard of because it's only an 8-bit software.
Right.
So yeah, I started rotoing there. Then I, started painting a little bit. It was just kind of whatever low-level tasks were around. It was a small shop, and it was kind of like the compositors were busy. I was just like, hey, is there some menial task you don't want to do? Let me try and do it for you.
Right.
So once I started to figure out how to paint and tracking patches, then I was like, okay, I could probably blag my way into a job doing like screen comps or something like that. Mm-hmm. Just kind of bit by bit, try to do higher and higher level work with a little bit of embellishment on my background maybe. But,
right.
I always tried to scale it. I'd always, before I took a job doing TV comps, I knew I could figure it out. I didn't go crazy. I didn't say, yes, let me comp your crazy CG characters. I just tried to go like one humble notch above what I was doing at the current company. And, over time, I just became a real compositor.
Right. Awesome. Okay. So that took a couple of years, I'm assuming. And then
I would say, yeah, I was probably floating around just trying to get experience probably up until, I'm trying to remember when. I think it was up until it was 2009 is when I got like a staff gig as a compositor and was confidently.
And were you doing most of your learning at 1111, or did you sort of move around a little bit?
No, 1111 was only for about a year or so.
Okay.
And, I kind of bounced around just doing support and like little small contracts. I was at Entity for a bit. There's this company called LLP. It was kind of cool. They did like their own in-house movies to sell the Hallmark Channel. But what was cool about it is they did production all the way to post, finishing, everything was all in-house. So it was just like this little factory. That was kind of neat.
Nice.
Try to think. I just had a lot of small runs like that. I had a small run at Komen. And then I got this place called High Ground, which was kind of my next like mainstay where I did a lot of learning. The biggest show we did there is Medium. Like we did that for several seasons, with Patricia Arquette. And then I started there on After Effects. I got on the Flame and then was taking in stuff from the D5, doing all the comp, laying it back to a D5. Still dust busting
right.
then too.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And D5s were tapes back then, right? So.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 422.
Yeah. Yep. 422. Okay. So you really sort of got into the hardcore production stuff, like post-production stuff, not just sitting in the background in Nuke doing your thing and then you knew everything that was going on, going to
yeah,
tape.
We kind of, yeah. I've always found myself at a lot of like boutique-y places. And so they're it was just kind of, there wasn't anyone else to do it, basically. Yeah.
Sure.
So it was kind of cool to learn how to deal with that and understand the process. And, even at that somewhat junior level to understand, what happens when things go to color or they go to online and kind of that part of the process.
Yeah, that's interesting. So how did you end up at Zoic? Was that just sort of a natural transition? You just got a gig at Zoic, or was some place you've always wanted to go?
Oh, yeah. So once Medium got canceled, there wasn't a lot of work left at High Ground. They were moving into like stereo production and stuff like that. And I wasn't really interested in that. So I kind of blasted out my resumes, and Zoic got back to me. And, at the time when I started at Zoic, which is probably 11 years ago now, I was thinking I would just, go there for a few months, but, check out some other places too. And I haven't left.
Right.
They just kept me busy. I really enjoyed the culture there. I enjoyed working there. I really enjoyed the work they gave me. It's been a great run.
That's awesome. Okay, well, let's talk about some of your time at Zoic. So what you started off, I'm assuming, in compositing.
Yeah.
And how did it go from there?
So, I started comping on the show called Once Upon a Time. And
right.
Yeah, so that was a really interesting job because just the sheer volume was amazing. I mean, we would be doing 300 shots, with all CG backgrounds an episode, sometimes 400, sometimes 600. And it was really cool. And, that's where I really learned like the in-depth CG compositing because there's so much work moving through there. Sometimes you'd get a note that would go back to lighting and it was 8 p.m. and you need to get the shot done that night. So it was like, well, do I want to wait for this render or see if I can make it happen in comp? And that's where I really learned, how to comp CGs to really understand, the whole back to beauty and dealing with all the layers, in V-Ray and, how to make things happen. So it was cool. I learned a ton. Did that. I think I was on ONC for a few years. And then I went on Arrow.
Okay.
And that was cool. That was obviously a lot less volume, but that's when I started comp supervising, and that was interesting. Kind of being a supervisor for the first time, a lot of new challenges there, because
So tell us a little bit about those challenges.
For sure. And it's like, you kind of have your own tricks and you're like, are these like legit? Should I be teaching people to do this too? Or is this like a weird Band-Aid? I don't know.
Right.
But whatever gets it done, right?
Yeah.
So I was on Arrow for probably a good 4 years or so. With Bill, actually. Bill joined me on Arrow season 3. We did that together I'm trying to remember when I jumped off Arrow. I was on Arrow all the way till season 6, I think.
Okay. That's awesome. So, but how was the transition going to a supervisor? Did you find it challenging to sort of go from, I know how to do all the work to now I got to designate other people to do that? Like, what are some of the challenges in supervising?
Yeah, huge challenges. I mean, it's a totally different skill set. It's interesting. There's a lot of it where, once upon a time, we had to keep our scripts super clean because we were doing all CG sets. So you'd obviously be looking at other parts of the set and you need people to grab your stuff. That kind of helped me set up for Arrow, whereas delegating stuff to other artists, you could do a look dev frame and say, okay, take it from here and take it to the end. There's a lot. It's also kind of intimidating because, some people are super experienced and sometimes more experienced than me. So I almost had to get used to, giving direction to those people. That was a big part of it. And there's just a new level of responsibility, knowing you're holding the bag for everything that is comped, basically, which is every shot.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, you have to sort of hold on to, like, everything that you do is basically has to go through you in some ways, either at the very least visually, to make sure it's sort of correct, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And had you done any feature work at this point, or have you done mostly broadcasts also?
My career has been almost entirely broadcasts. The feature stuff I did was like roto, the dust busting,
Gotcha.
all that. But I haven't done a ton of features, and I enjoy the pace of episodics.
Yeah, it sounds like that fast pace is kind of a challenge that you appreciate in terms of getting through things and trying to figure out how to get it done, right?
Yeah, I always enjoy the kind of the soft skills aspect, in terms of how do you make something feel impactful. And it's, you kind of, you want to hit the creative and the artistic side of things. Or at least, and when you're doing that pace, you need to do that first and then back into a lot of the technical aspects. Like, it's got to feel right. It's got to look good. It's got to be cool. And then from there, then you kind of go back and do the perfection as much as you can, with that, delivering every week because it's going to air in 2 days. sort of pace.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's obviously changed a lot more recently, right? Like the idea of an episode every week and having to keep that schedule and all that. So how has that changed over the years? Like in terms of, obviously streaming has changed the pace of the episodic work, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely, it's really different. I think we're still figuring it out because you still, episodic, obviously you still don't have as much time as a feature. Our schedules are much, more generous now, for sure. Like we'll get sometimes, you get several months to work on an episode, where some of the stuff we're doing to Arrow, get 2 weeks from turnaround to delivery. And there's also the air dates are not always ironclad either, So it's interesting. There's a lot of challenges to it. At this point, I think the feature methodologies and episodic methodologies are really overlapping, because with schedule changes, creative changes, you do need to do everything pretty ironclad and pretty proper from the get-go, because you don't know what type of notes you're going to get. You don't know how the creative's going to pivot, if they're going to reshoot, what they're going to add. And, you really need to build everything to be able to address notes is kind of number one.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to see how that was, because I know Zoic, I've, like I said, Chaos has been, working with Zoic for a long time. Once upon a time, we were working with Mike Romy back then, and he was telling us these crazy deadlines of like, you got to turn around like 200 shots in a week and a half, like, whoa. It's really kind of crazy. So, but like to me, it's like now it's suddenly like you've given more time, but the bar is significantly higher in terms of what is expected. Is that true?
Way higher. It's fun actually, because there's always, when you're delivering like on ONC, 300 shots an episode, of course, any artist would be like, oh, I wish I could go back and just, perfect this one thing. And, now we can, we have that time, and, we have the resources to be able to really go and get that stuff feature level. I don't think, if you look at like the high end streaming stuff and feature films, I really, maybe I have a bias here, but I don't think there's any discernible quality difference like there used to be.
I think there's definitely going to be, the quality is, I think, at the very least on par. I think they may throw more crazy stuff in some feature films, but they're not necessarily going to, there's some masks that slide sometimes see, or black levels aren't exactly right in the old days, but I don't think so anymore. I think you're absolutely right. And the other thing, obviously now, you guys are all working, and I'm assuming at 4K for everything, right? And HDR output, right? Yeah.
It's you can't hide anything, and and there's no softening, there's no diffusion that's going to hide anything in 4K HDR. Right. So that's been really interesting too.
Yeah, I'm curious. Curious about like, how you've obviously seen, we'll go back a little bit, but you've seen his transition. You were working in film at the very beginning, and you saw how that film process was, and Cineon files, and obviously I believe there were log 10 back then. Is that right?
Sounds right. 10.
Yeah. So and then now all of a sudden the deliverables are probably EXRs, I'm assuming, right? So
we try and keep it simple for the artists, and we'll write out linear EXRs, and we let our IO department kind of deal with it from there. I'm not always sure what happens, especially with ASUS now. Things are much more complicated than, you put a Alexa log C LUT on and you invert it later and you're done.
Right.
But most people, I believe, as deliverables are taking EXRs now with embedded mats.
With embedded. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it used to be a whole fire drill when they need mats and you need to do another render and all that stuff. But
and the embedded mats are going for the color people.
For color, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you guys are, yeah. All right. So what is, I mean, what are your thoughts about some of those changes? You mentioned ACES. How has ACES sort of affected your workflows, especially coming from compositing and understanding color space? Has it added more complication, or has it been nice to see a standardization that's been going on?
No, I like it. I really wish, it's just not worth the time, but I'd love to comp the exact same shot, one in, sRGB, whatever, and the other one in ACES, because the roll off and everything is super nice. There's so much, when comping you would do, so you just didn't have a white blob and you can get the nice fall off. And ACES covers a lot of that for us with the shoulder roll off, which is awesome. As far as the complication and compositing, a little bit, but our pipeline team is pretty on top of it with making it seamless for us, which has been really nice. So we have everything, every project gets set up with its own LUT and its own baked in LUT, its own viewer LUT and all that. And 99.9% of the time, the compositor doesn't even need to, it's not even really a consideration anymore.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting because before, color space was always a compositor's problem. You'd get something from a GoPro, you get something from Alexa, whatever, and it's like,
right.
That's the compositor is probably the best equipped person to figure it out. Now there's so much going on under the hood. We can't, with ACES, you can't, like I said, it's not like a log C thing, you just invert it. It's, if it's not working well, then you just need to ask someone smarter who specializes in that, basically.
It's kind of like your modern engines today has got a whole computer attached to it. Just take it to the mechanic. Don't try to change your own spark plugs.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's less problems, but more difficult problems.
Yeah, that's true. Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, tell us about some of the more recent projects that you've worked on. Obviously, you started off as a compositor or senior compositor, then compositing supervisor. What was your first job, sort of moving into the supervising role?
That was Legends of Tomorrow, and that was, I want to say 2017, 2018, and the show, we just had our series finale in this February, and that was awesome. That was the best, most gratifying, cool experience I could ever ask for as a VFX supervisor. It was so cool. It was when I was on the show, Mark Guggenheim was the showrunner of Arrow, and he was on Legends as well. When I first started,
Right.
Later on it was can't remember the last names anymore, but Keto and Phil. So I got to work with a lot of the same crew. Also, the VFX producer client side used to be my coordinator on Arrow, so that was interesting. So that was fun. So it was a lot of familiar faces, and it was so cool to get to be involved in the prep. That's was awesome. They were, they really embraced us and really, let us pitch in and all the, the concept meetings, the VFX meetings, and they're super open to any suggestions on shooting methodology and everything from start to finish. So, it was just to see it come in from the script and then take it all the way to the end was super cool.
Yeah, it must be. So is that one of the first shows that you really got to be hands-on and sort of be part of the beginning and really
that's
be part of that?
That was the first one where it's like, that was the first one where I was a VFX soup, and it was just, I was the one holding the bag, basically. On Arrow, Chris Jones was always really involved in Arrow. So, I learned a lot from him as far as just how to creatively guide the looks, how to hold the bar high, and all that stuff. And then Legends pretty quickly just became my thing.
Right. That's awesome. So what were some of the big challenges that you had on that show?
That show it's a pretty zany show, and they throw a lot of crazy ideas out there. The writers throw out whatever, so the season 4, there's just a lot of creature of the week sort of thing. So it's not like, okay, we're going to establish all the effects and then we kind of have them for the season that we're going to write out. It's like, the first episode we did is season 4 is when we picked it up, and we had this demonic unicorn that was guised as a beautiful unicorn, need to transform. Constantine sent it to hell. You figure out all that stuff. And then later on, it was like, okay, we're going to have this giant octopus and we're going to shrink it down. And this woman is going to battle your CG octopus, which was super interesting to figure out because, we worked a lot with stunts because she had her own choreography, they wanted her to do, but she had to do it with an imaginary CG character.
Yeah. So how did you do that? How did you plan that with them?
Yeah, it was interesting too because obviously octopus has a completely different skeletal structure than a person. So what we ended up doing was we just boarded the whole thing out. We worked with stunts, and they had a performer rehearse the choreography with the stunt performer, and just as I don't even think they shot that. And then he stepped out, and then she did the exact same choreography. So we tried to do it so it was still fresh in her mind, rather than do the entire scene. They did it shot by shot. So they had to stand in for that exact shot. They did their thing. He ran out, and then they shot the action.
And were you able to be involved? Were you able to be involved in the sort of the process of figuring out, because you have to know where the octopus is going, right? Or you're just like, here you go, good luck.
It was a little column A, a little column B. So I'm based in Los Angeles, and they always shot in Vancouver. So I was always in the meetings for prep, and I was working with the supervisor on set, and we collaborated as to how to figure this stuff out. But by the time they start rolling, it's out of my hands. Right. So I'll say, okay, this is what's going to set us up for success. If you do X, Y, and Z, I hope that works out on the day. And, it usually did. And the octopus stuff worked out great. It totally worked. You just got to, if you think it through enough, you can always solve a problem. It's not that you can't avoid problems, but you can scale your problems down to manageable problems. And that's how it worked out. And again, with the Legends crew being so collaborative, they would share the edits with us as soon as they could, and let us give a little input as to what would work, if we might need more time, if one shot was problematic, could we please consider a different take, or a different plan.
Right.
So that made it possible. That made that show possible.
Were you able to go on set a little bit more when you were doing those things?
I did a little bit, but again, with them shooting in Vancouver, I wasn't the mainstay by any means, but I did travel to Vancouver. I try and go there every 6 to 8 weeks just to keep a FaceTime with the crew, both the Legends crew and my Vancouver crew at Zoic. Okay. So it'd be a few times like I do a concept meeting in person, and they're like, "Oh, hey, do you want to go see what we're doing on set?" And, but I was never the guy that was, there day in, day out, doing all the hard work.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what it would have been like to, go back on set, because you started off, sort of being a PA on set, and that was really challenging. I'm wondering what it was like to be back on set.
Oh yeah, I did. I have done some on set stuff where I would cover for someone, or as kind of a day player on, a show that contacted Zoic. They're not a VFX show, but they have this one episode they need some help on. And man, I got a lot of respect for the people that are on set every day, all day. It's cool. It's fun and exciting to be there with the directors and see everything happen. But it's tough, and it's grueling. It's super, super hard work. And I think the biggest challenge for me is, you're in the office. You're planning out how you're going to approach a sequence. You have all your people with you. You have your CG soup, your comp soup with you, the asset team. And you're like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. You talk about it for an hour. You try it. You change the plan a little bit. When you're on set, it's like, okay, this is what we're shooting right now. Is that going to work? And you have maybe like a 30-second window to give any input, and then they shoot it and they move on. You can't look at the take, ask for a do-over an hour later. It's like you need to make the right call on the spot.
Yeah. It's the most stressful thing. Honestly, when I was on set, it's the thing is like, I have 5 minutes to make a decision that's going to affect months of work.
Yeah, exactly. And it's it's like so much of that pressure too is like, oh, I don't want to make life harder for myself and my coworkers later down the line.
Right.
You're in the trenches with everyone for a year, so you hear the tracking department like, oh my gosh, why'd they let them cross over this? And it's like, oh my gosh,
right.
am I gonna be that guy?
Right. Yeah, and you're always worried like, oh, I don't want to say something, but you're like, but if you make good friends with the AD and you're like, please, can that guy not cross over?
Yeah,
or whatever
exactly.
it is. So.
Yeah, that is one of the biggest challenges, is to know when you're like, oh, I really have to put my foot down because this is going to be a major deal for us, or if it's like, okay, I'm going to have to choose my battles and eat the extra roto or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. The other interesting thing you said, you mentioned, one of the peoples you were working with, what used to be your coordinator, right? Mm-hmm. And this is true for me. Like several of the people that were coordinators under me have actually turned into executives at studios.
Yeah, right.
So I did say, always be nice to your coordinators. You don't know when they're going to be giving you your next job.
Yes, that is a fact. And she's not alone. There's a lot of coordinators I worked with at Zoic now that are our client side producers. Mm-hmm.
Including, for example, Victoria Alonso over at Marvel. She used to be a coordinator over at Digital Domain. Oh,
there you go. Perfect. And just be nice to coordinators
I think
anyway.
She was a producer. I'm not sure if she was a coordinator, but she was definitely a junior producer there back in the day. But yeah, so that's very, very interesting. But yeah, okay. So you've done a lot of stuff for DC, right?
Yeah, I was in the DC world for years. I mean, for like 8 years or so almost. It was really cool.
Yeah. Were you a comic book person?
No, and I've been asked that several times before because I worked on DC stuff so much, but I never delve into comics a ton, to be honest. I'd love to fake it and say I was, but I will not be able to answer any follow-ups if I lied to you and told you as a comic person.
That's okay.
I'm not a comic. Very quickly.
I'm not necessarily big into comic. I'm certainly entertained by all the stuff that's coming out, but it wasn't like this something that'll latch onto. I was just curious about that. You're definitely a classic video game guy, considering your obsession with Dune from the old days, right?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Well, so tell me a little bit more about like, what are your thoughts about where production's going these days? Like, what's changing now? Like, what are some of the big trends that you're seeing?
Gosh, everything. Like we were saying earlier, streaming now, the schedules have really, just changed the entire dynamic of how episodic work is done. And even like I was telling someone a story about this pilot I worked on, and I was like, oh yeah, the crazy pilot season of March and April, where you just know you're not going to see your family for those 2 months. It's kind of gone. Like, right. Obviously there's still pilots, but it's not a mad dash anymore, and you never know when they're going to land. Also, you do see, just like you said, a much higher bar for everything. Much higher bar, right. And everything is kind of treated like a feature in not just in the quality of the work, but the way it's shot. It's everything's 4K, a lot of anamorphic stuff coming through on episodics, and it's very common now. I remember before you do a layout, you just track it, make stuff up. We get LiDARs for everything now. That stuff.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I feel like visual effects is seems like it's taken a lot more seriously from the production end, in that we get the LiDAR, the data collections consistently there. It's not, it hasn't happened. I can't remember the last time it happened, or you work on something that wasn't planned to be a visual effects shot, so you'd be like, oh, there's no HDR, there's no lens info. That doesn't really happen anymore. There's so much data collection, everything's so meticulously planned. It's great. There's a lot of those headaches that don't exist anymore from the
Yeah,
old school rush schedule.
I do remember having to beg to get an HDR. Like, can I just have 3 minutes to do an HDR?
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I can imagine. All right, so that's interesting. So the budgets are definitely here. They're much more considerate. What about other trends? Or what are you seeing in terms of demand for real time, in camera VFX, things like that? What are some of the things that you're noticing in those areas?
Yeah, the in camera stuff, we definitely are doing some of that at Zoic. I'm not the guy to talk to for that, but
Sure.
we have used real time, like after Legends, my next thing was For All Mankind.
Okay.
That wasn't like I came in at the end to help out because it was a ton of work, but we did a ton of Unreal for those environments, like a ton, and that was really interesting comping with Unreal stuff. It's obviously there's the initial excitement when you see the Unreal demos and they look great and it's real time, and there's also the challenges where it's you don't get the same buffers and layers you do.
Nope.
So there's a lot of it's kind of ironic that you end up using a lot of old school comp tricks that you used to use before you had layers on this very new school technology.
Yeah, well, but that's because it is old school in a sense, because it is a scanline renderer, right? So if it's or a rasterized renderer, so it is an old school renderer in a lot. It's real time, but it is an old school renderer, and it does that. So one of the things I've been sort of pushing is to see what we can do with real-time ray tracing, and so I've been sort of working with real-time ray tracing and trying to see about integrating that into Unreal so that we could enable your similar workflows that you guys are working with for real time, but also have that ability to keep your buffers and all that other stuff. But I mean, what are your thoughts on generally the idea of planning that? Like now, all of a sudden, you have to do a lot more planning in pre-production than you do in production because it's going to be done in camera, right?
Yeah, for sure. How do you mean exactly? You say
What do you mean?
in terms of planning for?
Well, you got to
real-time?
plan for because you got to plan for your entire environment now. If you're going to do in camera VFX, right? You got to do it all in pre-production because it's got to be ready for actual production.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because normally, like when you're doing the early pre-production concept stuff, sometimes it used to be so much about like, let's make something cool and then we'll figure out the logistics later. Where now it's almost the opposite, where it's like our logistics have to be airtight. Like this set needs to make sense and it needs to relate to the stage they're going to be on, and they can't walk through a mountain. You need to be really meticulous about planning that stuff and think of every edge case that can come up.
And do you guys do compositing after you've shot in camera VFX? Like, or what are some of the challenges that you have to do in terms of compositing that stuff?
So in my experience, I'm not really sure how they deal with the in camera a ton. When I've used it, we've rendered it out of Unreal the same way we would have with a Maya render or something like that.
Gotcha.
I know they used it for previs.
Okay.
And I know that we do in camera stuff. I just haven't worked on it myself.
Okay. All right. Well, what about some of the other trends? Are you seeing anything else besides schedules and stuff like that? Are you seeing other interesting dynamics? I mean, obviously the streaming has just taken off. The amount of content out there is just huge. Does that affect your schedule at the same time because you guys got a ton of work, or you're able to sort of hone it down a little bit more?
Yes to all the above. I think one thing that's interesting, it's harder to scheduling. It's just an additional challenge, I guess, when you don't have here's a post schedule. This is going to online that day, no matter what. With streaming, they'll have an online session. They might have another one. So staffing's been, there's an additional challenge to staffing. However, what really helps is work from home, which we haven't touched on yet, but that's obviously also makes a huge difference where we can draw from talent from anywhere. We're not limited by the amount of desks we have. I remember it's in some pilot seasons back in the day, we literally wanted to hire more people. We just didn't have the desks. We just physically couldn't put them anywhere.
Right.
Now, there's network considerations with scaling but there's no physical cap to it.
Interesting. Now, Zoic is obviously, taking advantage of a lot of tax credits, and they obviously have to have people in Vancouver, but or other tax credit places. But do you guys hire from nearly anywhere on the planet now? How much has it opened up for you guys?
There's definitely, and that's one thing that streaming brought back a lot of LA work. There's still tax splits and tax credits that they all take advantage of, but it wasn't. It hasn't been as strict or as it's not 90-10 like a lot of the network stuff we'd get. Sometimes 50-50. So there's definitely a layer of management to that and crewing that there is some shows that pretty much every show has some tax credit situation, and the crew needs to be balanced for that. So what we call LA now, it's basically anywhere that isn't Vancouver or New York is LA.
Gotcha.
Basically.
So if you want to hire someone from Alabama, they'll be considered LA.
Yes, exactly. LA. Okay. I know California offers some tax credits, but it doesn't seem to be significant enough to be a big consideration for any studios out there. So we'll hire anyone, from anywhere.
Gotcha.
But we definitely still need our New York and our Vancouver contingent.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fine. It's a balance. But that's actually kind of interesting. I mean, how involved are you in recruiting and getting some talent? Because now you have a much wider net of people you can go from, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. When I was I think it was just easier also in the office. I was doing interviews and, meeting a lot of new people coming in. I haven't, since we've been work from home, I haven't really been involved. But it is super cool to know, there was some people that just moved out of LA before, work from home and all that. And it was pretty cool to be able to work with them again or meet them and have that flexibility. And also myself, this summer I went to visit my family in Michigan, and I didn't have to take any vacation time. I just worked while I was there. I took my whole setup and worked out of my brother's basement, and it was seamless. Awesome. So it was super cool.
So how about supervising while doing things remotely? How is that? What are the challenges you've been dealing with there?
I think I'm in a unique situation where it actually made it way easier, because when I worked on Arrow and Legends, 80% of my crew was in Vancouver. So it was literally screen grabs, sending emails, pointing. Not, artists don't all have a phone at their desk. It was only the producer did or the supervisor, and it was a whole rigmarole to call an artist over, talk on the phone. We did, we had some screen share software, but it wasn't great. So it was just describing stuff. It's very much like a client giving you notes. Then when work from home happened, that the screen shares, the Microsoft Teams and the video calls just became commonplace. And actually, for me, it broke down a ton of barriers, because, I would never just now I'm going to call an artist's cell phone when they're in Vancouver, but now it's we're all on Teams. It's hey, join me in the Dailies channel. And, you screen share, and it's cool. I get to know everyone on my team better. Because the communication just opened up.
That's amazing. That's it. I hadn't thought of that, because I know a lot of people were having a hard time. They weren't used to that level of communication. But to you, it's well, at least I get to see them a little bit more. I get to interact with them a little bit more.
Yeah, and I got over the years of working with a crew in Vancouver, I developed the whole skill set of how to make notes super clear if they're not. If they're just reading them in an email. So, that only got better once I was actually able to screen share and see their face and make a hand gesture. Oh my God, being able to do a hand gesture like this, just whole new paradigm opened up. It was great. Right.
So Zoic, from what I heard, Zoic has actually gone pretty much anyone can work from home, or it's very optional to come into the work, right?
They've announced we're working from home indefinitely. We've been churning out great work working from home, and everyone likes it. And if you go to the office, it's available. for sure. But I've been home almost this entire time.
Right.
With a few exceptions. So it's great. It's so great. Honestly, there's, as a supervisor, there's some times where it's like, okay, animation has to get approved tonight. And you know how it is. You give a note at 5 p.m. and they're like, okay, no problem. I'll do the OT. I get it. I'll have a new version at 8 o'clock. And if you're in the office, you're just hanging out, like I'm done with everything else, but I'm sticking around till 8 o'clock. And they're like, okay, like got any published? And, you might have a few more notes and you're there till 10 just to do this 15 minutes of work reviewing them. That work. Yep. Now it's like, okay, I got Teams on my phone. I'm like, hey, tag me when you got it ready. And I can go eat dinner with the family, come back in. That's great. And also for the artists too, as a compositor, I've been in that situation where it's like, all right, need this render to come off the farm. And, once it happens, it's just a version up in comp, but plenty of times, you have to wait till 9 o'clock for that render to finish, you version up, render, and you're done. And now it's like, okay, well, at least I can just go inside, hang out, do my thing, pop back in, see if it's done. It's great.
Yeah.
It's just like the quality of life improvement's huge.
How long have I sort of sat around a studio waiting for renders to come off the farm, just sitting there doing nothing for hours? It's really painful. Okay, well, that's interesting. I'm very curious about, how that is. Well, it sounds to me like it's been a good experience for you guys, and to be able to do that and to have that flexibility. Are you guys growing, generally speaking? Are you guys looking to hire more people, or? Always.
It's been an artist market for a while now, and I think we're always on the look for new talent, and we've hired people. We have people all over the country working. I think since there was a slowdown when the pandemic first happened, but then there was a whole boom that followed once production opened up again. And since then, I'm pretty sure that we've had more people working at Zoic than we've ever had when we were full brick and mortar.
Interesting.
Once work from home opened up, I think we've always had more employees than we did before.
That's great. Okay, well, what are some of the upcoming projects that you guys are working on that people can check out and look into? That you can talk about.
I don't know. It's, to be honest, it's never clear to me what I can and can't talk about. I just stick to everything that's been delivered.
Okay.
I'm going with the safe route, but
that's fine.
But For All Mankind, I would say, is the most recent thing that we dropped in. There's some really good stuff in there. Okay. I'm so tunnel visioned on only the stuff I worked on. And I think that's the one downside I would say is work from home, is that I have my projects and I'm not really sure what my friends are doing anymore. Because I have my thing. I'm not sharing. I'm not walking in on their dailies by accident. I'm not walking by their desks.
Right. Yeah. Do you still try to get together, like maybe once a month, drop by the office, get some snacks and go home?
Everyone talks about doing it. We do have like company-wide parties, which are cool. Okay. we had a summer party. I think we have a holiday party coming up. Right. But you drop by the office, and then it's like, is anyone going to be there today? Who knows?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But I do know. I think Vancouver, they have more people in office than we do in LA, in my observation.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, listen, it's been a great chatting with you, Andrew. I really appreciate being able to hear more about what's going on, and obviously, people can go check out things that are going on at Zoic. It's nice to know that there are jobs available. So if people are interested, they should definitely get in touch with some people at Zoic about that. Really look forward to seeing some of your work. And congratulations, man. You said 11 years at Zoic, right?
I think so. Yeah. 11 years now. Going strong.
All right. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. I had a great time.